Hi, in this episode we'll have a little bit of refactoring because right now our Aegis controller does a lot of stuff. So let's have a look. Here it is. We have Aegis here, we have categories for our filters, we have categories for our new form, and we have ranks, and we even create new age and filtering and selecting and displaying requirements, so a lot of stuff. What we actually want to do is to split it a little bit. So if we go to Aegis HTML page, you can see here three distinct areas. So the first one here is filters. The second one is the list of ages. And the third one is new form. So one of the way to separate and compose our application is just to take these things and split them to different controllers. So that's what we're gonna do in this episode. So let's start from this new age form. For that, let's add here on this div directive ng controller, and we call this controller new edge controller, like this. So now we need to create this controller. In scripts controller, we create new edge.js. So here it is, let's save it. And of course we need to go to index.html and add this controller right here, new edge. So now basically I'm going to open split here and let's go to edges.js. And right here what we want to shift there is, for example, this functionality for new age. So I'm gonna cut it from here and paste it right into here. And because of the scope inheritance, all of these things like categories in the parent controller will be available to the child controller. So let's have a look in the browser. It should still work. So our new form, okay, doesn't work. Scope is not defined, of course. So let's go here and inject scope. And of course, here we are using edges. So let's inject edges as well. And now if we try to create new stuff here, it works. Excellent. But that's not all, because basically in this part here we have categories and ranks. So why not to shift them in the controller as well and remove this server categories and clear ranks bad names. So we have here edges and we will have also ranks. So I'm gonna copy it and paste it right here. And then we will have categories. And with categories, we have a little bit of problem. So here we will have categories and we fetch them from server. I'm going to delete this one and this one. And here I want to unshift it. So I do scope.categories and I unshift here the object name all. Okay, so if I save it and go back, let's right now concentrate on this part. It works, but we do not have default value selected. So for this default value to be selected, we need actually to make it right here, scope, filter by, that's where our selected value resides, category, and it equals to scope categories 0. So now we need to move this thing from here to the top, right here. And I'm going to delete category from here. And that should work. Yeah, it works. As you can see, we have all categories and all of this stuff works fine. So, and ranks are here as well. So now we can remove these clear ranks from here and move it right here because we need here the ranks with slice, but I will rename it to simple ranks. And for categories, we also will have categories with categories.query. And I need to add them right here. So we have ranks and categories. Okay, so let's go back here and let's have a look. And it doesn't work because we need to change names on the HTML page. So let's go to Aegis HTML. And right here on a new edge, we have server categories. So we have just simple categories. And here, instead of clear ranks, we will have simple ranks. So now if we go back, we're back to normal, and we can create everything, and it works. So now we have a separate new age controller, and here we have the new age, we have ranks and categories for the form, and the logic for the form. And our edges controller gets rid of all of this stuff. But still, in this controller, we still have filters. So let's extract filters as well. So for that, let's come back to our HTML page and scroll up. And here we have our filters. So we need to enclose it in additional div. So I'm going to have here a div with ng controller filters controller. And I'm going to scroll down and close this div. Okay, so now I need to create it. So in scripts, in controllers, I'm going to create filters.js. So here we have our filters controller, and of course we need to add it into the index.html as well. So we call it filters. Okay, and now we can shift some behavior from the edges controller, from the bottom, to the filters controller. But the problem is that edges controller and filter controller should use this filter by object, and basically we set this filter by object in the filters controller, but parent controller can't have access to the child's variables, to the child's scope. So what we can do is to create another service for this filter by for sharing this information. So let's do this. We call it filter by, and let's create service filter by .js, and we will use the most simple service value. We just filter by name, and here we have an object with a search string as an empty string, category as a null, and rank as null. Okay, now we need to include it into the index.html as a service filter by. So now we have access to the filter by. Let's go to filters here, and I'm going to inject it into filter by here. So now let's have a look. We want to shift almost everything from here with filters, with ranks, and with categories. I'm gonna cut it and paste it into here. Okay. So here, instead of this filter by, I will delete these two lines and this one. And here I will define filter by service dot rank equals scope ranks and the first parameter from here. And the same stuff here without the scope, just filter by category scope categories. So this way, from the child controller, I save information into this value service of filter by, and it will be available right here in the edges controller. So I'm going to save it, go to edges controller. I do not need ranks and categories here anymore as dependencies. This controller is much slimmer now. So let's save it and go back here. It does not work. And it doesn't work because we need to have filter by on the scope here. So what we do here, scope filter by equals filter by. And of course here in filters controller, we need to include ranks and categories and scope. So now if you save it, go to browser, and you can see that it works as it worked before, but now we have three different controllers. One controller for filters, one controller for the list, the parent controller, and one controller for the new age. Okay, in this episode we refactored our controller into three separate controllers, which made them much more slimmer and more maintainable. So thank you very much for your time, and see you in the next episode.